This is Talk Business and Politics with Roby Brock.
A busy week in the world of politics. Thanks for tuning in this Sunday morning. I'm Roby Brock. I'm joined at the Political Roundtable by KATV's lead Capitol reporter, Janelle Lilly, and Talk Business and Politics bloggers Jason Tolbert and Michael Cook. As far apart as we could possibly get you guys for what we got going on today.
Just a couple more days, guys.
Yes. Welcome to all of you for being here today. And you had a birthday this past week.
I did.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
You are 26 now. That's awesome.
23.
Yes, there you go.
I will celebrate it after the elections. There's just too much going on.
Right. Good deal. All right, let's begin with what has been kind of going on really the last 2 weeks or so in the political races. Everybody's moving towards early voting. Everybody's talking about the last minute polls that are coming out. Let's just kind of get an assessment. And I'll start with you, Jason. Where do you see the Republicans in general? Where do you see the Democrats in general heading into the home stretch?
I think coming down the home stretch, we've seen the polls where Republicans have really secured their lead, maybe even widened it a bit. Independents seem to be shifting towards the Republican candidate in most of the statewide races. Early turnout voter numbers have been up across the state in both Democrat areas and Republican areas. So we're really seeing an enthusiasm, a lot of people turning out to the polls. I think Republicans are solidifying the lead that they have.
I think these races are tight as a tick. There's two polls that came out, credible polls in my opinion, in the past week. You had the NBC Marist poll, which had both Cotton and Hutchinson leading, but they were within the margin of error. Well, of course, that's good news for Republicans. They get to say we're leading, but it's still close. And then Opinion Research also did a poll that had similar numbers. So I think heading into this election, both of these races are toss-ups. Now, the Republicans still get the bragging rights, don't get me wrong, but at the end of the day, it's a long way to go.
Talk Business and Politics poll, Hendricks College poll, though, showed a different set of stretch.
Yeah, but that was about 2 weeks ago, though. So it's funny how these things move.
Move that quickly?
Things are
in 2 weeks.
Things are people are starting to make up their minds, starting to get, okay, it's coming down to crunch time.
Other side of the coin, you had the Arkansas poll that showed a 13-point lead.
Yeah,
much larger.
For years, I've been criticizing their methodology. That poll is just not a good poll for elections.
What are you hearing, Janelle, from the different political campaigns? You're talking to all sides of the aisle.
Yeah, actually, I've been hearing a lot of folks saying that they believe the independents are shoring up their votes, especially with early voting.
In the Republican column?
Yeah, in the Republican column. They feel that the early voting, though traditionally believed to have benefited the Democratic candidates, they think it's actually a good sign for them, and they've really felt like those independent voters are taking advantage of early voting, and that's why we're seeing such high numbers.
All right, we've been crunching a lot of numbers on early voting. You've been doing a lot of posting on it. You've done a little bit in there too. I guess, Jason, let's start with you. What do you see in the numbers? I know you've looked at Republicans who are registered, Democrats who are registered, right, and then there's this huge swath that don't declare anything.
Sure. Among the registered voters, Republicans have a slight edge right now. They've sort of slowly been building that lead as the days have progressed. Of course, as you said, the hugest group is the unaffiliated voters, the one that registered as voter optional. So we don't really know how that group is voting, but we've seen a boost in turnout from all the different areas, not only in Pulaski County, which is usually considered a Democratic area. We've also seen Saline County's numbers up quite a bit. Faulkner's County's numbers up quite a bit. Pope County saw a big spike in their early voting numbers this week. So really both parties seem to be turning out their base, turning out their voters right now.
Some of the Washington County voters, there's more access now.
Sure,
and,
there's seven
polls.
sites now.
Why should Democrats like what they're seeing in these early voting numbers?
A couple things. First of all, the Democratic counties are up, Pulaski County, Jefferson County, and the Democratic base in Washington County. Also, the neat thing we do now is the Secretary of State provide at the end of every day who voted early. And so we're able to get those lists and bump it up against our internal models and see that Democrats, people who don't typically vote, are coming out to vote. There's a lot of counties where people who didn't vote in 2010 are coming out to vote in 2014. These presidential election year voters that only show up on the even number every other cycle.
But we've heard all this before. I mean, we heard this in 2012. We heard it in 2010.
Well,
I heard it from Republicans in 2006.
Right.
I mean, this is a
classic.
Why is this going to be a different election year?
I think this is a different election year. I think from the Democratic perspective is that the Democrats have their most intense field effort ever. And I've been overseeing it or been part of it for the past 10 years. And I can say I've never seen anything like this in terms of the technology, in terms of the targeting, in terms of the enthusiasm.
Republicans not sitting on their hands, though.
Sure, they have the technology that they're using the same type of tools. And what I'm hearing also is that a lot of the early voters or voters in the past have voted on election day. And so we're seeing some shift in voter behaviors away from election day towards early voting. If that's the case, then turnout might not be as high as what we think it is. I think early vote's up like 28% compared to early vote back in 2010. But that may be people changing their voter behavior to early vote instead of election day vote.
30 seconds, what's going to happen early voting versus election day? The weather is not expected to be too good.
Yeah, and that's traditionally been a problem, right? Bad weather, folks aren't going to the polls as frequently. And I am anxious to see, this is one of the first times that I've seen these huge early voting numbers. I think there's like 35% right now. And to see that and what it will impact on election day, maybe we won't see the lines, maybe people will get in and out quicker and the bad weather won't be as big of a factor.
All right, we got to end this section of the roundtable here. We're losing you for our next section because you're not going to go on the record with what we're going to talk about after this word from our sponsors. We're going to pick some winners and losers on election day. Jason Tolbert and Michael Cook are going to join me for that. Janelle Lilly's been with us on this first round of our political roundtable. I'm Roby Brock. We will be back with more right after this.
As Arkansas's population grows, so do our energy demands. But with the right mix of resources, reliable, affordable power will always be a reality. These resources are all around us in our rivers, blowing through our trees, even right below our feet. The answer isn't focusing on one resource, it's embracing them all. The electric cooperatives of Arkansas know that a balanced approach to power builds our communities and powers our dreams. Visit themixmatters.com and see why there's power in knowledge.
All right, welcome back. No Janelle Lilly in this block. Talk business and politics bloggers Michael Cook and Jason Tolbert are still with me at our political roundtable here. It's time to run through some key races and put you guys on the line as to where you think these outcomes are going to be. I'm going to be the tiebreaker when you guys can't seem to get along. Let's start with the U.S. Senate race. And Tom Cotton, Mark Pryor, who wins?
I have to say toss-up. I can't say definitively. I mean, obviously,
gotta pick
I'm
one.
for. If I have to pick, I say Mark Pryor. I think Mark Pryor pulls it out. I think there's the goodwill between him and his family for so long. I think Cotton is still so far to the right for Arkansas.
I think Cotton wins it. I think he's going to win it early. I think he wins it by about 10 points.
You think he wins about 10
Yep.
points? All right, I'm going to be the tiebreaker between the two of you. I think Tom Cotton has the advantage right now. We'll see how that plays out on election night. Governor's race, Mike Ross, Asa Hutchinson. You get to go first this time.
Asa Hutchinson will be the next governor. He'll win it probably 10 or 11 points again.
You see the same kind of margin?
Yeah,
there.
it may
He's
be
very
1 point higher
confident
than
in what's
than
going to
Cotton.
happen
This is
here.
the same party that said they'd have 65 seats in the state house last time.
Hey, look,
I
it's a
think
different cycle.
this one again. I have to say toss-up, but of course, if I have to pick, I say Ross still squeaks it out,
All right.
but close.
I'm going to break your tie again. I'm going to say advantage at Hutchinson at this point. I think that the numbers that I've seen suggest that. So we'll see. This ground game may wind up changing everything. All right, I'm going to group a couple of congressional races together. Let's go 1st District congressional race. We got Rick Crawford and Jackie McPherson. Quickly, who wins that one?
I have to say, unfortunately, Rick Crawford.
Rick Crawford.
Yeah, wins it easily.
Good. I don't have to break a tie on that one. That's good. But I think Crawford's got that one in the bank. I think about 7:45 we're going to know the result on that one. Shocking one here for you, the 3rd congressional district. Do you think Steve Womack might get reelected?
Yeah, I think let's go ahead and go to his victory party. It's all done.
Are you going Libertarian or Republican?
I think we can call that one for Steve Womack
Yeah.
today if we want to.
Right.
Might
You
want
still
to wait
got
for
to
some
vote.
totals.
Something could happen
Some
between now
totals.
and then. So, all right. Let's go 4th congressional district here. James Lee Witt, the Democrat, Bruce Westerman, the Republican. Mr. Tolbert, I go to you first.
I think that one's going to be a close one, but I do think that Bruce Westerman is going to close in the end. He's going to end up winning it. James Lee Witt, we've seen him really shore up his base. He's going to make it close, but Bruce Westerman does win it.
All right.
I think James Lee Witt wins that race.
Tell me why.
He's raised more than double, triple the amount of money Westerman has. He has good ads. He comes across as the independent mind for the 4th district. I think he pulls that one out. He's come on. Remember, Talk Business Poll, we had him 14 points down.
Right.
Then we had him at 2 points down
Right.
in a month's time. That's a gigantic leap.
Well, it was 2 months, I think, in
2
between
months,
theirs.
right.
But I do think that a lot of that was Witt shoring up his
Mm-hmm.
base there. I mean, I didn't see any big number movement with his independence. I'll break your tie again. I say I'm going to get a lot of grief on this one. Advantage Westerman because I think the fundamentals are in his favor in the 4th congressional district. I think the 1st and the 4th are mirroring each other with independent voters and with female voters. The 2nd congressional district, I will be curious to see how you guys feel about the 2nd congressional district. I will let Michael go. French Hill versus Pat Hayes.
Pat Hayes has led in every poll I've seen. He's run a great campaign with these fun, hokey in a good way ads, I think he's the next
Put your
congressman.
point spread in there.
2-3 points.
2 or 3 points.
Yeah.
All right, going to be close.
I agree,
Jason?
it's going to be close. I think Hayes' campaign was great in the first part, horrible in the last part. He's shown a lot of desperation in the last 2 weeks, which tells me that he's worried about this race. I think Hill wins it in a squeaker, maybe 1 or 2 points.
Hill wins in a squeaker. All right, I'm going to say fundamentally when I'm looking at what's going on with the ground game and in the numbers, I think it is the smallest of advantages. And I'm talking like near recount numbers for Pat Hayes at this point in time. I'm going D on that one. So, all right, so that's the congressional races. We've been governor's race. We've done everyone else. Let's go constitutional offices. Lieutenant Governor Tim Griffin versus John Burkhalter. Jason.
I think that Tim Griffin wins this. I think the Metro Express gets derailed in this race, and Griffin ends up being the victor.
John
I think
Burkhalter.
Burkhalter wins this race. He's been on the air since July with good ads, talking about how he's a job creator and Tim Griffin is a D.C. politician. I think Burkhalter's our next lieutenant governor.
I think there's a lot of momentum for the Republicans on the down ballot races. I think Tim Griffin wins this one. I can't say it will be by a big margin, though. All right. Next constitutional race, Attorney General Nate Steele versus Leslie Rutledge. Michael, to you first.
Leslie Rutledge has run the most incompetent campaign this year. I mean, you could
I
do.
need you to have a strong opinion on this.
I mean, it's like everything you can do wrong, they decided to do wrong. I think Nate Steele is our next Attorney General.
I agree with Michael that that Ms. Rutledge has run a pretty poor campaign. I think this is going to be one of the closest constitutional offices. I think Rutledge does win the race because I think she has a generic ballot advantage, but I think you're going to see some Republicans actually vote for Steele and make this one a really close race.
All right, total toss-up on this one. I'm getting the wrap sign, so we're going to have to go to our web extra for a little bit more on this one. So you guys stick around for one more block, and you guys catch us online at talkbusiness.net after this commercial break from our sponsors. I'm Roby Brock. This is Talk Business.
A farmer understands the needs of every season, and so do Farm Bureau members. When Arkansas families needed electricity, our members brought it. Reliable roads, our members built them. Agricultural education, our members provided. Today's members may not live on a farm, but their connections are as close as ever. So when that difficult season comes, no member has to face it alone. For every season, Arkansas Farm Bureau. Join today.
All right, I'm Roby Brock. Welcome back to our Web Extra, our political roundtable. Had to go a third round. We've never gone a third round
got a
before,
lot of
guys.
races to
I know
talk
we got a
about.
lot to
Yeah.
talk about. So we're in the middle of the constitutional offices here. We were on the Attorney General's race. You picked Nate Steele. You picked Leslie Rutledge. I think down ballot, low-informed voters, I think there is a generic Republican advantage. I think Leslie Rutledge squeaks this one out. I will say I'm not going to be surprised, though, if Nate Steele wins this one. I will not be shocked by
wouldn't be
the outcome
surprised
of
if
that.
he
And I would
won.
give him a chance to still pull that out as things go on. Secretary of State race. You get to go first.
I think Mark Martin wins this one. His name, ID helps him a lot. He's the incumbent. There really hasn't been a lot of attention on this race. So I think the generic Republican advantage, the incumbent advantage, I think he wins this one pretty easily.
And his name is Mark Martin.
His name is Mark Martin. People like NASCAR in
Michael
Arkansas.
Cook.
Yeah, unfortunately, I have to say Mark Martin probably wins it. It's an incumbent, even though he's an incompetent Secretary of State, Susan Min didn't have enough money to really bring it to a head to show his lack of service in the office.
Incompetence, your phrase word today, man.
That's pretty much sums up. Between Leslie Rutledge and Mark Martin, that's the incompetence is
Go
shocking.
easy. They may be watching, so you'll not have any friends on that side of the aisle. All right, treasurer's race here, and we have got Dennis Milligan versus Karen Seeley Garcia, and you get to give a little disclaimer, but I'll let you go ahead and make the pick.
The obvious disclaimer is Karen Garcia is my client, so that has to be noted on the front end.
Okay.
But I think Karen wins it. Objectively speaking, first of all, she's an accountant, the better qualifications. She's ran a good campaign, if I don't mind saying. and then finally, in terms of Milligan, I mean, when the Rogers newspapers and Northwest Arkansas papers literally in the editorial page call him a political thug, that's a problem.
Well, I guess I should give the disclaimer that I endorsed Milligan's opponent in the Republican primary and wrote some strong things about Dennis Milligan, but nonetheless, I think the generic ballot advantage here puts him over the top, he wins. I don't think people have focused enough on this race for it to make a difference. I think he wins.
All right, I hate to tell you this, but I'm going to side with Tolbert on this one.
The jingle will bring her over. The
jingle will bring her over.
will make it happen.
I think the generic Republican advantage at this point on these down ballot races is a little stronger than the jingle. So good work, though, my friend. Good work, though. But anyhow, I'm going with Milligan in this one. Auditor's race. We got Andrea Lee versus Regina Stewart-Hampton. Jason.
Andrea Lee wins this one. Once again, generic Republican advantage. Andrea Lee did a good job as state representative, and I think she is the next auditor.
What do you say?
I'd probably say Andrea Lee as well. I think she has a title in front of her name, State Representative Andrea Lee. Nobody knows who either one of these people are, so there's an advantage right there.
I will say this too about both of the women in that race. They have run a very positive, upbeat campaign between the two of them, and it's one of the.
It might be the only campaign.
It may be the only one that has been that way. Although I hadn't seen a whole lot of mudslinging in the land commissioner's race, but I want to point out that the auditor candidates have been supreme in terms of their behavior this election cycle. All right, land commissioner, our last one here. We got Mark Robertson, the Democrat, John Thurston, the incumbent Republican land commissioner, and a libertarian candidate. Not that there weren't libertarians in all these other races, but this one may be a factor in this one. Elvis Presley on here. I'm not picking Elvis Presley to win, but who wants to pick first as who will win?
What I would say is don't be cruel on this race. You know, I think a lot of voters are going to be tempted to, boy, I get to vote for Elvis Presley. So it's going to be some kind of weird numbers. But I think John Thurston does end up winning this race. He's done a great job as land commissioner. He's one of these guys that honestly has gone in, done his job, hasn't created any controversy, hasn't really caused any public scandals in that office. He's just done a good job as land commissioner, and so I think he ends up winning.
And his signs look like Farm Bureau signs.
Yeah, exactly. I think Elvis gets a little more votes than we thought, but I think Thurston pulls it out. There's
do
no
you
doubt.
think this race becomes a plurality victory for someone, or do you think that Thurston can win with a majority?
I think it's probably going to be a plurality victory because I think Elvis is going to get enough. He's going to get probably 10% of the people just wanting to vote for Elvis.
You know, you never know.
Yeah. Hey, look, I feel like this way. The voters out there that have endured a year's worth of political commercials in the U.S. Senate race and to some extent the governor's race and the congressional races, they deserve to go in there and say, you know what, I had the chance to vote for Elvis Presley for land commissioner. It's my reward, for doing that.
My chocolate cake
It's
for
fun to
voting.
go on Facebook and tell your friends you voted for Elvis.
Because this is like the last one of all the statewide, so it is like the.
It is down there at the very bottom. So anyhow, not to downplay the importance of that office or the candidates in that race, but I do think Elvis does throw a little wrinkle in that. Maybe our interesting footnote of the night. Michael Cook, Jason Tolbert, appreciate you both being here this morning. Lots of fun. We will be here on election night in KATV studios doing some of our same stuff. Everybody needs to tune in. I'm Roby Brock. That has been your Web Extra. You can catch up with the latest business and political headlines each and every day on talkbusiness.net. We appreciate you tuning in.